Hello, Daniel, the naturopath. I want to talk to you about certain allergies, very well known gluten and dairy, to pick these two. Um, a lot of these allergies come from industrialization, come from monoculturing, from the soil, from different types of deficiencies that are found, which are creating less robust products, in products, and then we fortify them with all these fake vitamins. And so we say we keep getting in more trouble, and then we try to get out of the trouble. And so, um, but to start off with milk, I also have dairy sensitivities. Like I can get away with eating dairy; it's not a problem, especially if it's good quality. But in general, I notice it can slow down the healing of my thyroid. My thyroid was, in a state where it was really much worse off before, and then I was able to kind of heal that through nutrition and through understanding foods at a deeper, kind of more esoteric level, and a few other things, homeopathic constitutional remedy, and it was many different combinations. I also did use natural pig thyroid and pills from Vietnam, where the pigs are fed properly, not soy fed, and just it took me a while to get off of those pills, but I was able to come down, and so I feel that now that my thyroid's healed, I can partake more in dairy products, but I realize that it's more about frequency. So every so often I'll go for ice cream, of high quality, or I'll make it myself, or maybe monthly I'll prepare kind of like, curds and whey, and that seems to be the best solution of all of them is homemade curds and whey. Another one would be custard. Sometimes the allergies come from the lack of a colloid structure. It's like a protein is sticking to the surface of the gut, and so this colloid structure, like eggs and milk, the magic of these two culinary sisters, I guess, creates an easier digestibility for each molecule of the milk, the milk and the egg protein. They're both easier to assimilate through the magic of cooking. So I would say that curds and whey, homemade, and maybe acidic type of kefir type liquid type of yogurt. Not liquid, but I mean it's a little bit more liquid than like a typical yogurt. Butter, and then if not, ghee, grass-fed ghee, and maybe Emmental, which is like a real true Swiss imported cheese that has a lot of holes in it. They're not artificially put in there like a lot of American brands. They're like created through fermentation. Um, these are kind of the base cheese products that work for most people, because they're the most ubiquitous in different cultures. And the fermentation, for example, in the Swiss cheese, like imported true high quality Swiss cheese, that fermentation helps our digestion. That's how we are able to digest it easier. It doesn't taste as, there's less of the animal, I guess you could say, concentrated. It's spread out a little more, and so the body has less to fight or overcome. The body does have to destroy what it brings in, so it has to have the power to, I guess you could say, technically destroy that animal. And if it can't, then there's more residue and things that remain, and you start to have problems, but deposits and stuff. So now, where is the origin of a lot of these problems? I don't know. There's quite possibly that vaccines are to blame for a lot of our allergies. I mean, if you ever been able to get a hold of proper vaccine boxes and read ingredients and check the actual ingredients of things, no longer anymore, because they kind of hide certain aspects, but you'll see egg proteins and wheat proteins. You'll see all sorts of proteins mixed in with the vaccine, and so you're always a peanut, like just strange things that you're like, what? And so I feel like this is what's caused a lot of our allergies at such a deep level. Like the body just like it was encoded as as an infant, and so it's almost like whatever magic they're pulling, that it's really powerful, because once you go through this as a baby, then it's hard to just convince the body otherwise. So they kind of know what they're doing, I guess. But you can overcome a lot of it, and so making the curds, buy like 4 half gallons or whatever of milk, and throw them in some sort of stainless steel enamel pot and just let them sit, or glass bowl or whatever, but let them sit for 2 or 3 days. So it becomes like gelatin, and then pour it into like an organic pillowcase, organic cotton pillowcase, and just let it strain overnight. Hang it over a pot and let it strain overnight. And then you have this amazing yellow-white curd, kind of like popcorn-looking curds. It's so delicious, and with all the fat and everything in there, and the butter. And an interesting thing about it is it's one of the only times that in the American market you'll have raw butter, because it's impossible. It's very difficult to find raw butter in America, and it's important to have it maybe on a monthly basis at least, because of the stigmasterol, which is a compound that they find only in raw butter, which helps with flexibility and joint movement and suppleness. And so it's good to have for that feature. And most Americans can't find this type of product, but you have to make it yourself. That's the thing, is you can't really buy it. There is a possibility to buy some versions of it, but it's harder to find in typical areas. Like if you go to like a Russian shop, maybe Euro shop, you might be able to find farmer's cheese, which is imported from Latvian soils, Poland, different soils around the world that are probably more rustic than ours, definitely more rustic, and definitely more darker soils, and this is going to allow for probably a better product in the end, as far as less allergenic. And they'll do like these kind of little ricotta farmer cheese looking things. It looks kind of like a form of ricotta, little balled up kind of, and you can get them at different levels of fat. I usually get the full fat if it's from the right soil, and then if it's from a bad soil, like the New York brands or the Amish brands, like that the soil may not be as good as European soil, and especially Eastern European soil, then I'll get the low-fat version and add my own Devon cream to it or something because the low-fat version, it's funny because a lot of the estrogen lacing properties of the milk in bad milk, they feed them soy and all these other stuff, and these types of pulps, these canola pulp, and they're all fed in there, and they don't talk about it because it's 5% of their diet or whatever, but legally, but these all change they don't need hormones and all this animals. They're so proud to say that there's no hormones in meat and all this. Well, yeah, because they figured out how to do it naturally with soy, and so just finding the right stuff is really important, the right soil, etc. Or you can make it yourself, like I said, through raw milk, and high iodine raw milk would probably be the best. I know that there's I think another way you could maybe overcome some of the deficiencies of the iodine, the milk that is weak in iodine, maybe through vanilla. It's a little more expensive, but if you can, this is one way that you could bring that iodine into the milk to a certain degree. And they go great together, So, one of my favorite butters in France was like this iodine butter. It was basically vanilla butter, and it was so delicious. It was they put a little bit of sugar to kind of make it go, sell better, but it was amazing. And so that's it. So you just leave it, and then you strain off the whey. You can put the whey in jars. Keep a little bit of the whey for the next time you make it. It might not take 3 days. It might take a day and a half the next time, because you start it up with the ferment, a little bit like a glass or a wine glass of whey thrown in there just to get it started. Sometimes you can also use that trick to make it sweeter, have a very acid taste to a certain degree, in a general way if you start from scratch. But whenever you add the whey, combination of adding whey and putting in the fridge at the right time to not let it get too acidic, and so you can get closer and closer to a sweet cream. sweeter cream. I know the Amish would traditionally put the cream in baskets in the river, and it would just swirl around in the river, just sitting there floating, keeping cool. And this was a great combination for the right temperature, the right everything to create a very sweet cream, that didn't become too acidic. But I don't mind the acidity. I don't think it's a really acidifying type of acidity in the body, because of the nature of calcium being so present. Calcium buffers a lot of that acidity if it's not inflammatory because of the allergenic, possibility. So this is the least amount of allergy you're going to find through dairy products, and they are important. Of course, butter is important, and then some people use ghee, and then some people that really need to stay away for certain windows, therapeutic windows to heal, like you can use goat ghee or other types of ghee that come from other animals. So that would be my recommendation. Or kefir. You can buy kefir grains and make your own dairy products. Like a little thin kind of yogurt that's like acidic, I'd say that's pretty much the best way to go with it. And then sometimes you have to stay away for a while, test things out, let your body kind of move away even for months and then come back. There's certain types of tryptophan, serotonin, things like that in the milk and the cream. I used to buy these Devon creams and just like mix them with pistachio paste and kind of like, honey and sugar, whatever it was. I was making my own little pistachio ice cream, But the problem is that it's all about, this tryptophan, this serotonin, these elements. They're so readily present in that cream, and so it does help with sleep. It does help with recuperation. There is something positive about it. But you also have the digestive system and everything else. So maybe finding the right frequency. Like I've found that, a little cream here and there for my ice cream, do it yourself, or finding a really proper place, which is very hard to find. Because it's hard to get this A2 milk. It's hard to get milk that's coming from these smaller, more rustic races in Jersey and all this stuff. So you got to kind of seek that out yourself. Even Jersey cows are not all A2, like here in the States. And I know that the Devon cream is totally A2. But you can also import, creams from all over. I mean, now there's stuff in Whole Foods and French and different areas. But try not to go local when it comes to certain things. Local's great for some things, but it's really stupid for others, especially at this phase of our development, with FDA running, Monsanto running the FDA for 50 last years at least. We'd have to be silly to think that our soil and everything else could just be in any good shape. So we have to be careful and get things from the right soils. And then, of course, when you cannot eat those products, any of this higher calcium but healthy, using nature to ferment and create that calcium availability and all that stuff. When you don't have that, you have to increase those same items in your diet. Some good ideas for calcium outside of that would be, broth, making your own 24-hour broth, using bones and everything else. Maybe some pig's foot or veal foot, which you can find in Asian markets as well, as along with the carcasses and everything else. But and then also another good source of calcium, herring. Herring is an amazing source of calcium, especially if you can get whole herring. But even if you can just get however you can get it, try to avoid any of the soy oil and canola oil herring. Try to find sunflower oil only. And if you have to get it in vinegar sometimes, then maybe repackage it yourself into olive oil and let it sit for a second, and just so it's not so acidic. But those are two elements. Of course, you have all these Brazil nuts and pine nuts. These are amazing too for calcium. But I really try to focus on the animal foods as far as seafood. A lot of the zinc from oysters and different types of shellfish, but you also have a lot of calcium too there. And I don't know, for vegetarians, I mean, I know that seaweed tartare is pretty popular. It's not just for calcium; it's mostly for iodine, but that's a good one. Another amazing one for vegetarians that no one will tell you about is ajo blanco, which is a Spanish recipe. And they take these, Marcona almonds, and they smash them up kind of like hummus, like in a type of, machine or whatever, and then you mix in olive oil and bread, preferably a good bread, and like sourdough from the right soil. Like I said, you can find some of these breads at Russian shops too. They import these kind of rye and different types of breads, but some people like a more white bread for this application. So it makes it look right, So, and then you mix that with what do you call it? You mix it with a little bit of garlic and olive oil and maybe some water. I don't know, but it's an amazing recipe. It's like pure calcium. It tastes like hummus, but it's like pure calcium. You can also use it for, soup. You can water it down, add it to soups, and it's a really powerful product for vegetarians. I think that's pretty much a lot of different approaches you can use with milk and how to overcome it and how to find the right frequency in cooking. Custard is one of the most powerful milk products out there. It's just milk and eggs, a little bit of sugar, coconut sugar, whatever. You can put a little bit of coconut flour in there too, just to dry it out a little bit, maybe make it more, like more, not sponge cakey, but a little bit more solid like that than typical. But really powerful stuff, just it's the nature of all tissues, just this fat soluble vitamins and calcium put together, and makes it much more digestible. It should be in the life cycle of every child, custard. Using the best eggs you can find, of course, meaning soy-free eggs, which is hard to find. You have to usually order them online. Luckily, some people have access to certain farmers markets, etc., that they can find them, but most farmers markets you cannot. If they're about $6, $5 a dozen, then they're not the right one. They got to get closer to $8, $9, $10 a dozen, and you're like, oh, it's too expensive. No, it isn't. It's the right price point for eggs in this world. In America, because otherwise you can't overcome the soy feed and the corn-based organic glyphosate. I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but organic glyphosate corn powdered supplement, which goes into the supplementation part of all of these, winged animal foods. I forgot how to say that in English. Villi. That's how you say it in French. But so chicken, duck, and everything. And so this is taking away from, this is adding a dimension that you don't want in there. So soy-free is usually the best bet as a keyword to find these eggs online. Glyphosate-free as well, because some people are starting to realize. They start analyzing this stuff. I'm like, how's glyphosate in there? I'm perfect on my. I just use this little supplement at 5%, which is part of what the USDA wants us to use, because they still control the monopolistic farm system. They still have control on all of it. So we're getting around it. They've got all sorts of excuses for why it's supposed to be that way. Do it right and heal yourself and use products that nature intended. Understand the depth of those products and the richness of those products is where we should have been aiming our energy, not in the multiplication of billions of different ideas and products and all these millions of supplements and vitamins. We really could have aimed in a different way at just improving eggs and milk and water and air and meat and just these little. We could have aimed there, and boy, we had exploded the nutrition. So we're in the reverse world now. So hopefully that can help some people get out. Thanks.